And we will now continue with our agenda. And as we've heard now about the Mexico airport groups, we have invited the Spanish authorities, the AENA, to receive their vision about how the SEMS is implemented in Spain. We have invited to moderate this panel Víctor Manuel García. He is the manager of the International Airport, who will be moderating this panel for the following 45 minutes, and he will introduce our colleagues from AENA. So, Victor, I think you're there, ready to go, so the floor is yours. All right, thank you very much. Good morning and good afternoon. Depending on where you are right now based. I would like to thank you for the invitation and the Grupo Aeroportuario del Pacífico uh, for inviting me to this event. In 2005, I was in the first symposium organized by JP. We just had security managers and working groups. And right now you can see these years afterwards, we can see this 10th edition, the international scope it does have, and it's a pleasure to continue participating here. So in the framework of the ICAO for 2021 as the year of security culture in civil aviation, the previous panelists were mentioning a very well-known sentence that security is everybody's role. We all take part in security. As Alicia Sorrosa said yesterday and Ricardo Delgado this morning, I would also say that it is the essence of implementing a security management system is precisely that, having a security culture that is embedded in everyone. So in certain way, I'm sure that the implementation of an SEMS is a tool that will help us to have the security culture, and it will be a tool for this year to really meet our goal of the year of security culture. And apart from that, the pandemic, of course, we can't leave that aside, but it is of course affecting our processes. And what was happening last year with the huge impact that the COVID pandemic has had. And as Javier was saying, I have the honor to introduce the colleagues from AENA, the Spanish Airport and Air Navigation Authority, so that they can tell us what's been done in Spain. We have Alfonso Horna Gómez. He is the head of inspection and processes department in AENA, and also Francisco Javier Hurtado Abenza, who is the head of the private security and quality control department. So we will first listen to Alfonso's presentation. Alfonso, it's a pleasure to have you here. You have the floor. Well, good morning or good afternoon, depending on where you are. First of all, I would like to thank you for the invitation to participate in this symposium. And well, I've heard several ideas that ring a bell, and I will also reflect them in my presentation. The presentation that I'm going to do, I will now try to share it. I hope you can see it properly. Hopefully there are no problems. And this presentation is going to be about the quality control in airport security from the perspective or from the point of view of a network of airports such as the one AENA has, presenting certain characteristics. Can you now see my presentation? Can you confirm? Yes, yes, perfectly well. All right, perfect. So the first thing that we are now going to see is the concept of quality. What is really quality? We all know, but it is not, it's always good to remember, it's the property or set of properties inherent to something. That is, we're going to evaluate what is security, what are the measures that we are adopting, whether they are properly implemented as objectively as possible. I personally am an internal quality controller or inspector. So from that point of view, I always try to see how to abide by the regulations and do things as best possible. Why do we do the quality controls? Mainly to guarantee compliance of two goals. On the one hand side, qualitative objectives, which is abiding by the regulations. You know that in Europe we have a European regulation, which is general for all the countries of the European Union, and which is then specified into the national security programs of each of the member states. Specifically for Spain, we have the civil aviation program, which is the one that we have to follow. So we have to comply with this national regulation and the quantitative objectives, always and everywhere. What does that mean? When we're going to do an audit on an airport, what we see is that not only at 12 in the morning inspections are done in the area of the personnel, but also at 4 or at 2 in the morning. And this means we can sometimes we go at different times and not always at 12 in the afternoon. And all the different access doors, access gates, and different places in the facilities, all the regulations need to be met, and not only in the main areas, so to speak. One thing that is important that we try to pursue in the European Union is standardizing the goals pursued. We have the concept of one-stop security. This is followed in Europe, and this means that we apply the same measures in all the airports, and that means any person coming into any airport of the member state needs to go through similar measures to other person coming to a different airport in the member states, because we should all follow the same rules in Italy, in Spain, wherever. And once these passengers are inside, have followed the same measures, so they can travel from one country to another without any necessary additional measures. And in AENA, this is important because we have a network of airports and we have to apply the most similar measures in all the airports so that the passengers don't tell me, well, look, in the Palma de Mallorca airport, this measure was different to another airport. No, we have to be standard. We have to use standardized measures. And now the concept of continuous improvement. There was a speaker before me speaking about it. And continuous improvement really means that we have to insist on this purpose of improving security. The European Commission controls us. Every year they come and emphasizes this aspect. And the AESA, which is the security agency, the National Security Agency, is always, pushing us in this sense to have a continuous improvement system in place. Well, is there any regulation? Of course, we follow the regulation 300. It says that all the member states will draft, apply, and keep a national program for quality control. And then we have the regulation 18. Every state needs to develop a national program for security and how they are going to control each of the airports in its network, etc. And the competent authority will inspect airports, operators, and other entities, such as freight agents, and so on. If we speak about the national program of quality control, is the version 7, and this is mainly its goal. It's evaluating through regular audits the compliance of the different aspects in the security and the national security program, identifying potential deficiencies and proposing corrective measures that are compulsory. If we do not follow these corrective measures, we can receive a sanction. any of the different audited authorities, either companies or airports, the catering service, everyone. If Chema Peral is there, he's been working with us for several years, and he will perfectly remember because he was in charge of the auditors of AESA when they came to visit our airports. I do remember perfectly well. Greetings to you, Jose Maria. So external audits, what kind of external audits do we have in the AENA airports? Well, the European Commission is one of them. They come once or twice a year based on the volume that we have in Spain. Then the AESA, this is the State Air Security Agency. Then we have the TSA. They come to visit us. They have some kind of agreement with the European Commission, and they come to some airports to check what are the measures that we apply. They are not auditors as such, but they do give recommendations. And then the ICAO, even if they are authorized, they do not carry out audits, and they usually delegate into the European Commission. Chema knows this very well, and all the people who have relations with the European Commission, but they could also carry out audits. What do we do from the security division, the airport security division in AENA? Well, we have a chart where we have a very detailed follow-up of the audits that we have by AESA or the European Commission, or we ourselves carry out audits as well. So we have a fluid communication with the different authorities. We try to be present in the different meetings with the European Commission and AESA as well. We analyze non-compliances, and we try to solve in the best way possible these non-compliances. Now, the AESA audits are done very quickly. I don't know whether you can see my mouse, but I will try to show you the procedure. If Chema sees this, it has nothing to do with the one that was applied before because it's changed. There is an on-site inspection, then they send us a report, then we can reply with allegations, then they group all the information, and on a second stage of agreement, the airport and AESA get to an agreement about the potential solution to these non-compliances, and then we find a corrective action plan, and then they will ask us for the correcting actions. So this is the evidence of what we've done in order to solve the non-compliance. All right. The reality we have in AENA is this one. This is important to bear in mind because we then need to find a proper approach to the most standardized measures possible. We have a network of 46 airports. We are now having lower rates of travelers, of course. The percentages have gone down because of the pandemic. This happened around the world, but in 2019, we had more than 275 million passengers and more than 2 million movements of aircrafts. And we had to guarantee the homogeneous or standardized quality to all the passengers in all the airports in our network. And this represented a huge effort in order to have the measures following a single line or a common line. What is the internal quality control that we follow? This may be very interesting for you in order to understand what we do in Spain. Well, AENA has its own internal verification plan. We call it verifications instead of audits in order to differentiate them with the ones by AESA and other regulators. So we call them internal verification plans. So we follow the same criteria that AESA would follow about the degree of compliance of the security regulations in force. These are the verifications or the checks that we do. And these are internal audits, really, where we are going to review or we're going to visit our 46 airports and 2 heliports as often as we can. And we review the application of the processes. I will later on specify what are these processes or procedures, sorry, because these procedures is specifying what do we need to do in order to meet the standards of the national security plan. Because in Europe, we have the European regulation, then each country adopts it into the national security plan. And this is done based on the different characteristics and frameworks and cultures of every country. And this national security country can also be specified for each airport particularly and determine how to do it. So detail is really this security procedure. Now in these verifications, we check that the regulations are met, and we also think about resource optimization. We can see the Alicante airport, and this is the group of AENA auditors and myself who took the picture, and we can see how procedures are done. Then we also do tests or rehearsals. Rehearsals are a way to check that the security guards are really into what they are doing. They may be visualizing an X-ray machine, but they are thinking about what they are going to do when they leave the room. No, they need to be 100% concentrated, because at any point we may have a forbidden item or good that they need to locate. So these rehearsals are not only with the X-ray machine, but forbidden objects that can be found in the passengers' bodies, etc. I will tell you more about it. Then we also have reports about the results of these audits. This is important. Why? Because we create a checklist. In this case, this is a summary of the National Security Program, where we identify the most important items. And well, this is just one sheet. There are many different sheets with the different items, and they cover, well, supplies, vehicles. There are many different things. And we have this checklist, and then we evaluate all the non-compliances, and we take statistics from that. And we send a complete report to every airport that was visited.
So what do they do with this report? They need to put together a corrective action plan to correct all the non-compliance. Now, this plan must be reviewed and approved by us, same way AESA would do, because we work in the wake of what AESA does at airports. Now, this is the methodology for the verifications we do at AENA. I'm afraid, well, this might not be big enough for you to see, but in any case, we do a visit, we do the activities, we have a meeting with the head of security. When the visit ends, we put together a report, and we send a report. Normally, we first send an email summarizing the most important findings to the airport per se, and we do this 1 to 3 days after the visit, and then later on we send the full report on, well, not on paper anymore. Now it tends to be on digital. But in any case, based on that plan, the airport needs to put together the corrective action plan. So what happens when the airport does not deliver the corrective action plan? We must insist on them. We need to follow up, email, call, etc. We really insist, because this is a very important point. What if they do not deliver the corrective action plan? Then we visit the airport again, and we communicate to the airport manager what is the problem. Once they deliver the corrective action plan, we have it. We assess it. We see if there is sufficient evidence so as to accept or not to accept. If we accept it, fantastic. It is okayed in writing. And if not, we ask for other measures. So the airport has time to send other measures. Now, once the corrective action plan is accepted, two things might happen. The airport is large and we do another follow-up visit because, well, it's just interesting with big airports to have a more detailed type of control. And then if there's anything pending, let's say, okay, we accept the corrective action plan, but you need to fix the fencing. It's a lot of work, so that it's going to be, you have 6 months for that. Well, we follow up on those measures. We may take another visit to the airport if we believe that the measures have not been carried out effectively. Now, rehearsals. The European Commission, whenever they come to Spain, they do the rehearsals. AESA does rehearsals as well. And these rehearsals, as I've mentioned, are meant to avoid illicit goods being, so let's say an explosive, any sharp object, or any other dangerous or forbidden object introduced by a supplier, a passenger within a car, what have you. And so we do our tests. We used to do it before at security management, these rehearsals. But of course, a lot more tests than rehearsals than what we used to do were needed. Our department is very small, so we decided to take this outside, outsource it, and they are the ones carrying out the rehearsals. Since November 2016, this technical service is providing rehearsals in all airports with more than 400,000 passengers per year. The team is based in Madrid and they fly. They go to one airport every day. And they tend to have the support from other people at the airport because otherwise they would be known. Okay, we have a couple more minutes because we really need to save some time up for Javier. I thought I was going to do the presentation of it basically myself, but I can summarize. So rehearsals on procedures, sharp objects or explosives, as I mentioned earlier, and then instructions at the airport. We've done more than 4,500 rehearsals per year. It's important to follow the instructions of the airport and also to be discreet. And you only need to report to the head of the law enforcement office. And it's been a really good outcome. I believe that the results have improved quite a bit. What other tools do we have available to standardize? Well, we have the general procedures, which, as we said, complete the PNS app. They're agreed upon with the law enforcement officers, and we distribute it with all airports at the same time. So these procedures are made more specific by each of the airports, okay, because they have specific features in each of them. Now, confidentiality of these processes is key, and we only distribute it to the interested parties. We do not distribute these procedures to people who are foreign to their preparations. Other tools to standardize what we are doing. Okay, I'm going to take a few minutes away from Javier because I know he has not prepared a presentation. Just some remarks. Oh, yes, definitely. Go ahead. Your part is so interesting. So what are other tools? I'm sure you've seen this in your airports as well. When we develop a project, when an engineer develops a project for a terminal or for anything and everything within an airport, well, it turns out sometimes it's hard to take security into account. I'm an aeronautical engineer, and when I was in college, along with Javier, they would not say anything about airport security. We were really good at designing a platform or a terminal in terms of operations, but not in terms of airport security. So what happens? Often we found that we would get the projects and they would not take into account airport security because, well, in some cases they had to be modified. There were significant investments to be made. In order to avoid this type of thing, for several years now at AENA, we have developed a security manual to design airports. Covers 3 sections. First section, access for vehicles, or it gives a lot of guidelines about how an engineer needs to design the vehicle access. Second, the perimeter fences. This is part of what can be communicated, and this is part of the confidential information to be shared with engineers, of course. Third section, signaling, or signage rather. Section 4, how to design the equipment that is checked in. Security controls, planning for AFSEC areas and public areas would be the last section. This is a picture of the airport in Barcelona. This is Malaga Airport with a fence around it, and here you can see, well, the public area and some measures applied, particularly to try to avoid attacks in public areas, which have been the more frequent ones over the last few years. Before I give the floor to Javier, let me briefly talk about quality, customer-centric quality. Beyond the meeting the quality requirements, making sure everything is done across the board, what can we do so that our clients, the airlines and the employees and the passengers, if you remember, there was a holistic quality concept, right? And passengers are our clients. Well, we want communications to flow and make sure that procedures are communicated to make it everything easier for employees and passengers. Javier Hurtado is doing private security. In this case, we're talking about security staff. If they're not dedicated, they do not behave well with passengers, then we tend to have problems, and same thing happens to employees. They need to know what are the security measures they need to understand and take into effect. And then the airports are also our client, so to speak, because we need to give them information on everything that they're not complying with. We're always the bad guy in the movie, right? Because we always go and say, this is not right, you need to do this and that. And in some airports, they just don't like this. I'm sorry, but that's our mission. And it's our job to tell them, this is what you're not doing well, and we need to provide them with the best solutions. Now, in general, it's really important not to impose things, but rather explain and make sure everybody becomes engaged. If you're trying to impose, people don't like that. And they tried to stay away, and they don't want to know anything about the rule or understand it. They do not get engaged. It's more problematic. And also, we need to use our common sense. Security must be operational. The safest airport in the world is a closed airport, but that won't help the business. Air transportation would not work. So we need operational security. Is this reasonable? Well, no, not really. We want our passengers to be comfortable and travel, well, quite easily. And finally, let me just share a few comments on improvements that back in the day we thought could be made to the screening process. How could we have a somewhat complete screening process that would meet several characteristics to make it nice for passengers and, well, walk in the park? Of course, we thought about the automatic access doors that are in many airports already, maybe an additional gate here, information in many languages, or a virtual attendant, putting information about the waiting time that reduces the anxiety when a patient comes to a screening point. They don't know how long they need to wait. They get really nervous because it's unpleasant and it's harder to apply the rules. So if you tell them how long they're going to wait, it's much easier. Mailbox and envelope machines. Well, sometimes we have a forbidden object or a perfume. In Europe, it's forbidden to travel with perfume beyond 100 milliliters. What do you do with that? Well, if you can buy an envelope and postage and you mail it home, that's great. We also have information on security measures. We have signage to indicate what lines are shorter, what machines are free, just for the ease of the passengers. In Europe, we have liquid bags for liquids. They're one liter bag, so that passengers don't have to retrace their steps. And then we see we've extended the tables here before and after. This is really important, before and after the X-ray machines, because thanks to that, passengers can go through the process much more easily and smoothly. And then the automatic return of the boxes or the trays, so that a person doesn't have to manually take them back and forth. That improves the quality of the monitoring, and our image is better. And then the kids area. Okay, I don't know how many of you have children, but you know that during the lockdown, it wasn't easy. And when you're traveling with kids, that's another situation that's not easy with kids. And airports are not friendly for kids on a general basis. So having this little play area before and after the X-rays, you know, something that's relaxing for the kids, and it's just a place holder for the kids while the parents are doing the X-ray. Wooden floors are also useful because when you go barefoot is helpful, and then having separate areas to do the carry-on luggage inspection without stopping the line, that's helpful. And then security scanners, but of course this depends on the capacity. We've tried them and we're not going to be implementing for now, but other airports have them. So in short, this is what we do. How can you improve your screening process? Well, I just shared a few best practices. Images are quite self-explanatory. These are some automatic gates. They have the system installed. This is one virtual attendant that offers information. It's a projected image, and they offer information in different languages. We have that in Palma, Mallorca, and other Spanish airports. This is a machine that offers envelopes. This is a TRS, an automatic system to get the trace back. We have this in Madrid. This is the Palma airport, and you can see the signage. This one is in green. This shows that this is the best track. And this is the kids area that I mentioned, so that you can, you know, put your kid there before and after they go through the metal detector. This is in Madrid, and this is a body scanner. It's one of the improvements, potential improvements, but we haven't implemented this yet, although they have in other airports. And that's it. I didn't want to take much longer. Do you have any questions? Well, this is just a joke, just to take things a bit more lightly. Of course, our job is really serious, but this is needed. Particularly a few years back, we thought liquids were so important. It looked like the world was coming to an end because we had to inspect all liquids in the world. And there are definitely other ways that potential terrorists can hit us with. So thank you very much. If you have any questions, I'll be happy to address them. And Javier, of course, has the floor now. For whatever time there is left, he can, anything else he wants to add, he's very much welcome. He's the head of private security and quality control at AENA. And well, maybe he has a few comments. Thank you, Alfonso, very much for your talk. It's been really, really thorough. And how you've covered quality and processes at AENA. Let's give the floor to Javier. You've got 5 minutes, Javier, so that we have time for Q&A. Okay, perfect. That's great. I don't need any more time. Good morning, or good afternoon, good evening here in Spain. I would like to thank GAP for giving us the opportunity to participate in this event. I see that this is a reference in Spain and Latin America in security, since you have such a large following. So the way we work and our internal quality controls and ongoing improvement processes, well, that's what I wanted to mention, talk about. But because this is the year of security culture, and we're dedicating this event to SEMS, we want to give you a bit of background. And Miguel Angel Antonio Scorcia mentioned earlier, SEMS. Well, most of us are meeting SEMS, but we just need a couple more things. So that's just an example of how everyone, even here at AENA, where by regulation we don't necessarily need to implement SEMS in our organization, well, we've studied it, we've analyzed it, and we believe it's a methodology and a process that's really interesting to implement airport security. So much so that we started analyzing it to see if it was interesting for us or not. And just like Miguel Angel said, we were basically meeting all requirements, give or take. And I have just 2 comments, 2 slides to share with you. Well, this is just a short introduction about AENA. Alfonso covered this. Really, there is no need to go through this. Let me find the slide. This one here. This is what we're all familiar with, and it's quite overwhelming. When we see it, it looks, when you put this spider octagons, like we're going to be lost amidst procedures and processes, but we're all doing this, all these 7 key components. The commitment of the management. I think the top management in all of our companies know security is vital and essential. Resources, including third-party sources, resources. We know that training is essential. We saw this in many talks.
This is something we try to professionalize and adapt the methodology that we use. But I wanted to focus on this one particularly: supervision, performance, and continuous improvement. In all these internal processes that Alfonso has mentioned, more or less developed, this is just part of the SEMS. If we would just need to end up linking everything and making it all intertwined in interconnected parts so that they are not isolated. So what we wanted to tell you with Alfonso's presentation, if you realize, is focused on this one, because what does the security management system says? That we have to develop a program for qualitative evaluation. in order to improve the efficiency of the whole process on a continuous basis. So what does that continuous improvement process means? Well, audits, security audits, evaluating the facilities, equipment, documentation, reviewing the measures. When we have identified any inefficiency or non-compliance, we have to review whether these have been corrected, then reviewing the security procedures and see what is the practical application or what is the most efficient application of the measures, and not only in theory or in paper. Because they may be very good on paper, but impossible to be brought into the practice. So we need to be aware that paper is something, but we have to make it a reality, and the process needs to be clear and effective. And the security tests. The best thermometer to check how we are is to try to commit by ourselves what we try to prevent. So this is the way we can find security breaches. And well, with this, which is all covered in the document of the ICAO, this is what Alfonso has told us, and this is what we wanted to share with you. This is the way we work, this is our know-how, and that's the main conclusion. To a lower or larger extent, all the airports are meeting SEMS. We just need one more step, which is interconnecting the 7 basic components so that they are just one single port and they are not 7 independent pieces, but just one single process composed of 7 legs. So that's it. That's the only thing I wanted to do, was providing some context to what Alfonso has already explained. All right, Javier. Thank you, Alfonso and Javier, for giving us this presentation about AENA in Spain. And thank you again for this panel. Thank you, Víctor.